um, 10, 10 things that I've done or that I've seen done that I think have had a massive impact on low-level disruption. Hi. Um, First one would be praise. I think praise is a really powerful thing in the classroom, and something that I often do if the class are not settling or it's taking them a while to follow an instruction. I'll actually walk around the room, I actually tap the desk and say, well done, John. Well done, John. John's got his book out. John's got his book out. John's facing the front. John's got his pens out. Well done, John. Well done, Sarah. Well done, Lydia. And I literally walk around the classroom really quickly, just tapping the desk, saying well done, and addressing those students. And the moment you start doing that, the moment the other students start seeing it, and all of a sudden it's like a trend, and with it, usually within 30 seconds, most of the students are starting to settle just from that tactic of positively praising. And I saw yesterday, I put a tweet out and somebody mentioned proximal praise. So just looking for those people who are doing the right thing, who are following instructions and praising their behaviour and showcasing their behaviour. Because often thing that's kind of natural to me that I'll do is I'll go after the negative instead of showcasing the positive. And I think I suppose that's the natural human reaction in those situations. So I think praise is huge. I think using assertive language is something that I've practiced a hell of a lot since the start of my career, the start of my teacher training. I first read it with Paul Guinness in the Teacher Toolkit, which is an amazing book. Most of that book is actually about teaching and learning ideas, but in the last section he talks about managing behaviour, and he gives examples of things that teachers say that where things go wrong. So like, for example, he uses comments like how dare you, comments where teachers have compared a student to their siblings and so on. And then he uses like short quickfire assertiveness, and then there's like a long version. So quickfire assertiveness would be in the corridor, and really it's about addressing the student by the name, stating the behaviour, not personalising. So saying, okay, John, you are, I don't know, you're talking while the teacher's talking. I'd like you to do X. I'd like you to do X now. Thank you very much. I think it's quite, for me, I will tend to avoid getting into a dialogue as much as possible, especially if it's in a lesson. I'll try and move on as quick as possible. If there is an argument or there's some kind of debate or discussion, I'll say, right, see me at the end of the lesson, please. And then I'll flip straight back into lesson mode. And 9 times out of 10 that works for me. I think it's risky to get involved in that kind of dialogue, in an argument, in a debate with a student. I think it's better to say, look, see me at the end of the lesson if you want to discuss. So yeah, so I think assertive language is hugely important. I also think that beyond that, tactically ignoring and that, again, that doesn't mean ignoring bad behaviour. I think I saw an example from Bill Rogers where a student wanted to shouted something out, and the teacher said, please don't shout out. And then he turned to the other student who had their hand up, and that student, as he turned to address the other student, kind of went, oh. Or he didn't even make a sound. He just kind of rolled his eyes and pouted and wasn't happy. But the teacher didn't go after that. They kind of decided, right, then that student is not disrupting the rest of the lesson right now, so I'm going to allow that student to sit there and do that. I'm going to carry on with the lesson. And the important thing is to address the behaviours that matter in that sometimes it's about choosing your battles and picking your battles, and sometimes students want to create that show and they want their moment of fame. And by denying them that, they will soon settle down. And actually it shows the rest of the class he's in control. He's not going to get embroiled in a debate over something for 5 minutes and then the lesson gets lost. He's businesslike, he's in control, he's got a job to do, he's going to do it. I think as soon as students start getting that message from you, I think they realise, okay, I can't get away with this, or even if I did do it, there's no point. So I think tactical ignoring isn't about ignoring poor behaviour, it's about choosing your battles. and it's about making your mark on the lesson, on the class. Obviously avoid whole class sanctions, and I've never given out a whole class detention, but I think it's so tempting to blanket sanction sometimes when things are going wrong, and you know, we've all been there. You know, there's just the other week I had a lesson where I thought, oh bloody hell. You know, the lesson was disrupted at the beginning, out of my control. Came back in, the students were quite lively, and I thought, oh no. And then, you know, it's then about not getting frustrated and saying, right, you can all have a detention, or you're all staying behind at the end, or whatever. But sometimes it's about picking. What I'll tend to try and do is pick behaviours and say, right, okay, let's address that behaviour, let's address that behaviour quite quickly, until the students get the message that you are addressing those behaviours, rather than just kind of wildly shout. And I mean, sometimes you have to do that, sometimes I have to do that, but more often than not, maybe try not to. I've put on my little list there, use rewards. I don't mean rewards good behaviour, because I think we should expect excellent behaviour at all times from all students. Personally, I would never reward good behaviour, but I do feel that things like merits, praising learning, flagging up, and actually pointing out, and like I said before, pointing out and showcasing good behaviour is a really powerful tool. So rather than rewarding good behaviour, it's just showcasing and praising students for following instructions, and for good work as well, and for showing real progress in learning. I've put seating plans on there, and I think spending a while on seating plans has benefited me in my career massively. Thinking about, right, okay, have one student sat on the front row and then another student 2 rows behind, but in that line. So there is actually no way that those 2 students can communicate with each other in that room. And sometimes you get into a bit of a maze, because you might have 10 students in the room who you want to position in certain ways in that room, and you just can't do it. But I think just spending time on the seating plans, it's common sense. I'm sure everyone's doing that anyway. Waiting for quiet, not talking until they're ready to be spoken to. Literal silence, and every day I'll do that. Just not right. I'm waiting. Teacher stare, you know. I'm not going to do the teacher stare on this video, but you know, bulging eyes, you know, whatever it is. But just making sure that the students know, okay, I'm waiting for quiet now. You know, and I'll just stand there. I'm waiting for quiet, even if it's 30 seconds, a minute. I'm not going to speak over you. You're going to listen to me, and I refuse to speak if you're not going to be quiet. It's as simple as that. Bold body language for me would just be kind of shoulders back, head up. I'm in control, I'm in charge, this is my classroom, I own this classroom. What happens in this classroom is going to match my expectations, and having that attitude, I think, expresses into body language if it's kind of unsure, and I think planning helps with that. If you know exactly what you're doing and you feel really comfortable in what you're going to do in that lesson, I think that ties in with that as well. I really do, in terms of feeling that confidence in your body language. I think if you know that lesson and you know how that lesson works, and that's why I think it's so important that you're comfortable in the pedagogy that you're using, whatever the pedagogy is, traditional, more traditional approach in the lesson, maybe it's more inquiry, but whatever the type of lesson it is, I think it's really important that the teacher feels comfortable in that lesson. And then the more comfortable you feel, the less time you have to think about what you're actually doing in that moment in terms of teaching and learning, and the more you can just relax and actually think, right, what are the students doing? What's their experience? That's me anyway. That's how I see it. The better plan the lesson, the more comfortable I am with the content, the better I am when it comes to the classroom management, and the more comfortable I feel. And the last one I've put there is having a task ready on entry into the room. So just something on the desks or on the board, and then you can say to them, right, I want you to come in silence, take your pen out, sit down, there's a task on the board, you've got 1 minute to complete it, off you go. And I don't want to hear you speak. I want you to come in, sit down, do the task on the board, please, thank you very much. And then they walk in, and as they're doing that, you can be patrolling round and saying, you know, why aren't you doing it? You got 1 more minute. Why aren't you doing the task? So they're just, as I said at the beginning, these are just things that have worked for me. They might not work for others, but I've put the tweet out there anyway, so it's on my timeline. But I just thought I'd try and add a little bit more in terms of my thinking on those 10 things.